Okay, good evening, everyone. Happy to be back. Today we will continue on our essay writing topic, but today we are going more in depth. So before we were basically focusing on the pre-writing techniques, and now we'll go into the actual writing tips. Right. So today we will start off with the paragraph, an element of the essay. So I'll cover this today in the PowerPoint, and then hopefully I can upload some resources on the sentence as an element of the essay. So the paragraph, this topic is going to be a little bit longer than usual, but we will cover it eventually, right? So we move on to the word of the day. And our word of the day is paragraph, because why not? So a paragraph is a subdivision of a written composition that consists of one or more sentences, deals with one point, or gives the words of one speaker, and begins on a new, usually indented line. It can also be a verb, meaning to write paragraphs about or to divide into paragraphs. So where does the word paragraph come from? So paragraph has multiple origins. So it comes from the Middle English paragraph, meaning the marginal sign marking paragraph, the Anglo-French paragraph, and from medieval Latin paragraphos, which is the US. It also has roots in the Greek paragraphos, this time OS, and this referred to a line used to mark change of persons in a dialogue. And it also comes from paragraphin. And then the graphin part of that word means to write. So since we have a definition of paragraph, we can just go into the lesson. So what are the uses of the paragraph? It signals an idea, it expands on an old idea, and it can signal a transition. So for our first point, we have writers designate paragraphs to discuss new ideas or points. At times, the reader gets a signal that tells what the new idea is. Other times, they do not. Ensure that you do not jumble more than one main point in a single paragraph. Right. And on the expand an old idea, writers often come to a point at which specific illustrations must be given, exceptions noted, and more details given. This added evidence usually needs to be separated into different paragraphs. And lastly, often a writer needs to bridge the gap between the ideas conveyed in one paragraph and those covered in another. A transition paragraph might be used where the shift in a line of thought might be complicated. So we all have experience in writing. We would have written paragraphs that have these different uses. But how about the structure of our paragraphs? And what difference does it make? So a paragraph usually consists of a topic sentence, supporting details, and a concluding sentence. It is the order of these elements that typically determines the shape of a paragraph. So our first shape or structure is the topic sentence at the beginning. So the most common shape of a paragraph starts with the topic sentence at the beginning, the supporting details in the middle, and the concluding sentence at the end. This shape shows that the paragraphs typically start and end with generalizations, while being crammed with specific details in between. So what are the advantages of this paragraph structure? It is familiar and expected, it is easy to read, and it is easier to skim. So we are used to having the main idea in our face. It's the first thing that we see when we write. So this is why this is the most common structure in paragraph writing or essay writing on a whole. Right. So let's move on to see an example of this structure. So this is from Childhood Emotional Neglect Causes These 6 Lifelong Mistakes by Jonice Webb, PhD on Psychology Today. And it reads, when you are raised with childhood emotional neglect, you unconsciously learn that your feelings don't matter. Your parents don't tell you this directly. Instead, they ignore and dismiss your feelings in moments when you need their attention, validation, and compassion. And so, you live according to the idea that your feelings don't matter. When you live by this false truth, perhaps without even realizing it, it directly impacts who you are and what you do in your life today. Now, from this example paragraph, we see that, yes, the topic sentence is the very first sentence in the paragraph. When you're raised with childhood emotional neglect, you unconsciously learn that your feelings don't matter. So this is the entire idea of this paragraph, right? And then the supporting details are there. So it says your parents might not tell you this directly. Instead, they ignore and dismiss your feelings. And you live according to this idea that your feelings don't matter. So it explains how you can be raised with childhood emotional neglect. So they lay it out plain and straight. It's when your parents, they dismiss your feelings, when you need attention, validation, and compassion. And it also sets up a possibility that in some cases, yes, parents, they might tell their children directly that your feelings don't matter, but other times it might be indirect, which is what they laid out here. And then lastly, we have our concluding sentence. When you live by this false truth, perhaps without even realizing it, it directly impacts who you are and what you do in your life today. So this concludes this paragraph. And we know, well, we can infer that the following paragraph that comes up after this one might outline how a person who has suffered from childhood emotional neglect, how that impacts their life and how they make decisions, etc., etc. So this is one example of writing your topic sentence at the beginning. Next, we have topic sentence at the end. Some paragraphs are structured to proceed from the specific to the general, from supporting ideas to the main idea. The chief advantage of this structure is that it sets up the topic sentence as its punchline. However, because this arrangement is unusual, it can be hard to read and even harder to skim. And if you remember from one of our previous classes, skimming is a technique that can help you in your reading comprehension, where you gather the main idea from each paragraph, right? So with the topic sentence at the end, it is harder for you who expect it to be at the beginning to get the main idea, because the first place some people will look is the first sentence. So this can be attributed to us being more accustomed to getting the main idea first as we communicate and read. So writers generally use this type of paragraph to give a change of pace in their writing. So here we have an example. And this is from Visual Perception and Personality by Warren J. Whitridge. Hopefully I said that right. So when we watch a person walk away from us, his image shrinks in size. But since we know for a fact that he is not shrinking, we make an unconscious correcting and see that he is not shrinking. But since we know for a fact that he is not shrinking, yes, we make an unconscious correcting and see him as retaining his full stature, right? So past experience tells us that what his true stature is with respect to our own. Any sane and dependable expectation of the future requires that he have the same stature when we next encounter him. Our perception is thus a prediction. It embraces the past and the future, as well as the present. So again, we have an array of supporting details. And you can notice that there is no concluding sentence in this paragraph, because obviously the topic sentence is already at the end. So there's no need for another generalization after the topic sentence. So in this paragraph, the supporting details fully outlined with an example, and then it concludes with the topic sentence, which is the generalization. So it's basically saying from this example that I outlined before, this is what we can deduce. So it moves from the specific to the general. And that is basically the structure of such a paragraph. And next we move on to topic sentence in the middle. This is our last paragraph structure. So paragraphs with their topic sentence in the middle are often found buried somewhere in the middle of an essay, where the argument is at its thickest. A transition sentence or two, a little discussion, and the topic sentence of the paragraph are found somewhere in their midsection. Placing the topic in the middle of a paragraph also gives the writer a chance to link the main points of the ongoing discussion. Knitting together separate paragraphs to express the thesis of an essay requires the skillful use of transitions as well as variation in the placement of successive topic sentences. And here we have an example of a paragraph with this topic sentence in the middle. And it reads, "For many years, I suffered from severe anxiety every time I took an exam. Hours before the exam, my heart would begin pounding, my legs would shake, and sometimes I would become physically unable to move. Last year, I was referred to a specialist and finally found a way to control my anxiety, breathing exercises. It seems so simple, but by doing just a few breathing exercises a couple of hours before an exam, I gradually got my anxiety under control. The exercises help slow my heart rate and make me feel less anxious. Better yet, they require no pills, no equipment, and very little time. It's amazing how just breathing correctly has helped me learn to manage my anxiety symptoms." And so the topic sentence in this paragraph would be, "Last year, I was referred to a specialist and finally found a way to control my anxiety, breathing exercises." So now the problem with such a paragraph, especially if you are not a critical reader, is that with this structure, you might designate a sentence that is not a topic sentence, right? So some person might say, "Oh, for many years, I've suffered from severe anxiety every time I took an exam." That would be the topic sentence. But as was said before, with having your topic sentence in the middle, you can join two or more different ideas in one paragraph. So we have in the first two sentences kind of a background to the topic sentence, right? So they are basically giving the reader the seriousness of their anxiety condition. Like their heart would be pounded, my legs would shake, sometimes I would become physically unable to move. They are giving a background to the main idea in the third sentence. And then after the topic sentence is stated now, the writer went ahead to add specific details that directly show how these breathing exercises would have helped to treat their anxiety. And yes, it might not be hard to write such a structured paragraph, but if you are not careful as you read, you might choose the wrong topic sentence or the wrong main idea from a paragraph structured in this way, right? And then we move on to topic sentences developed over 2 paragraphs. So this is not really one structure related, but it is a way in which you can develop one point more effectively. So sometimes a topic sentence is too complex to be developed in a single paragraph. Developing a topic sentence over 2 paragraphs gives the writer the advantage of taking a leisurely pace that allows supporting details and informative or humorous asides to be blended into the discussion. An idea can be expressed at greater lengths, and extra details, facts, and examples can be used to support it. The more leisurely pace of development may also help the reader follow the writer's complex argument. So here we have an example, I should say. And this is from Type of Poetical Obscurity by E.B. White. There are many types of poetical obscurity. There is the obscurity that results from poets being mad. This is rare. Madness in poets is as uncommon as madness in dogs. A discouraging number of reputable poets are sane beyond recall. There is also the obscurity that is the result of the poets wishing to appear mad, even if only a little mad. This is rather common and rather dreadful. I know nothing more distasteful than the work of a poet who has taken leave of his reason deliberately, as a commuter might of his wife. Then there is the unintentional obscurity or muddiness that comes from the inability of some writers to express even a simple idea without stirring up the bottom. And there is obscurity that results when a fairly large thought is crammed into a 3 or 4 foot line. The function of poetry is to concentrate, but sometimes over-concentration occurs, and there is no more comfort in such a poem than there is in the subway at peak hour. So as was stated before, you can develop your topic sentence in more than 1 paragraph. And by developing your topic sentence in such a way, you have more liberty to add more figurative language. It mentioned humorous asides, a little exaggeration, whatever. This is most easily done when you are developing your topic sentence over more than 1 paragraph. Imagine if this example was stuffed in 1 paragraph. It would be very hard to read, very discouraging to read. So sometimes you have to separate your thoughts into paragraphs. But the issue with this, especially with writers who aren't as strong in making complex arguments or developing complex arguments, is that you will develop 1 topic sentence in 2 paragraphs, but then not adequately develop the other topic sentences for your other paragraphs. So let's say you have 3 subordinate points under your thesis of your essay. So generally, that would equal 3 paragraphs for those 3 subordinated points. Now, if you were to develop one of those points in 2 paragraphs, some people might be tempted to either omit one of the other subordinate ideas, or they will stuff the 2 remaining subordinate ideas into 1 paragraph. So if you're going to attempt to use this style or structure, Make sure that you take note of your word count. You take note of all of your ideas before you start, and pay attention as you write. And with that being said, we can move on to characteristics of good paragraphs. So paragraphs vary in style, structure, length, and complexity. But all good paragraphs have unity, coherence, and completeness. So let's start with unity. Good paragraphs approach their subject directly, moving towards the main point of the topic sentence without distraction. This straightforward movement in a paragraph is called unity. To be unified, a paragraph must stick to its singular main point. All writers occasionally stray from their topic sentence, but this can be rectified during revision. Sometimes, sticking to your topic sentence pushes you to discard compelling but pointless details in your paragraph. So this is one thing that many students struggle with, because you have to balance between having enough details and not putting too much pointless details in your paragraphs. Because the more pointless details you have, the more likely you are to lack unity in your paragraph and essentially your entire essay. So let's look at this example of a paragraph that lacks unity. So the sentences in italics destroy the unity of the paragraph. So let's read. At 1 p.m., it was time to report to my job as a cashier of the Accra self-service gas station, located 1 block from where I live. I should probably mention that I live in Bakersfield, a town whose reputation is cruelly maligned. Yeah. I have found that most people think of Bakersfield as a garbage dump of creation. Anyway, at the Arco station, I sat in a cage like a monkey in a zoo, collecting money through a barred window from citizens whose lives must have been duller than mine. Judging by the way their feet dragged and their faces drooped, I repeated myself over and over again, endlessly, until I felt that my voice was floating out in the air somewhere, separate from my body. Sometimes I almost wished for a robbery to inject a moment of excitement into my life. My friend Jimmy Davenport, who works for a posh liquor store, was held up once, and the robbers handcuffed him in the men's toilet, along with the manager of the store and 2 customers. But for me, the most exciting event of the job was when I opened my sandwich bag to see if I was having salami or cream cheese. So I said before, the sentences that are in italics and also in red, they are the ones that destroy the unity of the paragraph. So of course they add details, but are they relevant to the paragraph itself? No, they're not relevant. They might be interesting in a way, and you feel like, oh yeah, it's kind of like a humorous insert or a parenthetical insert, but it does nothing for the paragraph. And especially as students, again, I must stress this, when you have a word count that you are mindful of, do not put in the extra unnecessary details. If they're not going to support your main idea, do not add them, because you're going to be wasting your word count, right? So ensure that as you revise what you read, and even as you outline what you are going to write, that your topic sentences, they are clear, your subordinate ideas, they are clear, your thesis statement is clear, and that there are no unnecessary details as you review your work, right? So tips on maintaining unity. Develop a paragraph around the main idea. Express the idea in the topic sentence. Make the relationship between the main idea of the paragraph and the thesis of the paper clear. Don't assume that the reader will get it. Spell it out for him or her. Support the main idea of the paragraph with details. Create separate paragraphs for those details that explore your topic from different perspectives. Eliminate sentences that do not support the main idea or revise the main idea to include those sentences. Oh, I am sorry. Right. So these are just some tips that can help you as you write to maintain the unity in your paragraphs. Okay, so I move on to coherence. A well-written paragraph has sentences that are not only clear, logical, and grammatically correct, but also arranged so that the reader easily understands the flow of ideas. The best way to achieve coherence is to view your paragraph as a single unit, rather than a succession of sentences. The focal point of the unit is the topic sentence, which all other sentences of the paragraph should coherently work to support. So let's look at an example of an incoherent paragraph. In the past year, it's been through times of extreme highs and lows. My emotional outlook on life. The trend of any life seems to follow this general pattern. Some of the high moments were meeting new people that turned out to be much more than mere acquaintances, having the newly met person turn into a friend, a person could know for the rest of their life. Also, meeting and going out with a few special girls, which in our relationship between each other bloomed into a kind of affection for ourselves. Then too, I gave top performances in the area of athletics, track and field, and also in baseball were most gratifying. So even as you hear me read, and even as you read, you realize that this paragraph does not make any sense. And the main defects of this paragraph are, its topic sentence is muddled, and it is occasionally ungrammatical. Now, as you write maybe your first draft, it's okay to get grammatical errors, and the topic sentence is all over the place, etc., etc. But if you're gonna send in a paragraph like this, do not expect good marks, right? So how do we rectify this mistake? How do we rectify incoherence in our paragraph? So number one, we check our topic sentence. Number two, we avoid mixed constructions. Number three, we use pronouns that refer to only clear antecedents. Number four, we use grammatical structures to achieve balance in a sentence. Number five, we use transition words to help the reader more easily through our writing. And number six, we repeat keywords to attract and hold our readers' attention. So let us move on to checking the topic sentence. If your topic sentence is vague or otherwise confused, your paragraph will most likely follow suit. A topic sentence like, in the past year, it's been through times of extreme highs and lows in my emotional outlook on life, which was in the paragraph that we read, is a confusing sentence that does not suggest a clear pattern of development for the example paragraph. This sentence can be revised to read, the last year of my life was a rough one with many ups and downs. This revised topic sentence is clearer and gives a better sense of what is to come. Examples that show how rough the writer's year has been. However, this topic sentence is still too broad to be covered in a single paragraph. It can be further revised to focus on specific hardships of the year. So we can see over the past year, I've been involved in a series of disappointing relationships with girls. So this topic sentence is not broad and it's not too narrow. So it can be covered in a single paragraph. So the writer can then create a list of disappointing relationships that they had in the past year as their supporting details, and then include them in their newly written paragraph. Revising your topic sentence sets the pace for a readable, interesting, and specific paragraph. So once again, check your topic sentence for all of your paragraphs in your essay. Number 2, avoiding mixed constructions. Reading sentences that start with one pattern and end with another can sometimes be hard to understand and confusing to read. Example, if you don't play the lottery, you can't expect to win. This is a clear sentence. It's easy to understand, easy to read. But then we have, if you don't play the lottery, winning is hopeless. So the entire rhythm of the sentence is kind of thrown off. You notice how it's different from the first sentence? Right. So sentences that begin with one pattern but end with another are called mixed constructions. Good sentences have built-in predictable patterns and structures. Avoiding or editing out all mixed constructions from your paragraphs will immediately improve their coherence. So let's look at more examples. By bowing to the pressure of special interest is a sure way for a politician to lose respect. How can we improve this sentence? Well, we have 2 examples there. Bowing to the pressure of special interest is a sure way for politicians to lose the respect of voters. And then we have a politician who bows to the pressure of special interest is sure to lose voters' respect. Next, we have, whereas parents insist on stifling their children's independence, they encourage rebellion. Improved version, when parents insist on stifling their children's independence, they encourage rebellion. Next example, because a writer's style is difficult, makes readers avoid her work. Improved, because the writer's style is difficult, readers avoid her work. So writing is not just about finding big words and using conjunctions and using transition words and all of those things. You have to structure your sentences in such a way that they're easy to read and they flow smoothly. So avoiding mixed constructions is one way in which we can have clear sentences and in turn, better paragraphs. So I move on to number 3, using pronouns that refer to clear antecedents. We did touch on this before in our pronouns video, but let us review it. So a careless, inconsistent use of pronouns jumbles the ideas in your paragraph. Example, everybody today wants psychological advice so that they will tell them what to do. But that's a way of avoiding your problems and losing one's sense of responsibility, which is the only healthy way to survive. So right off the bat, we see many issues with the pronouns. The sentences, they can be rewritten in a way that is clear and that every single pronoun that is used refers to a clear antecedent. So instead, we could write, people today want psychological advice from a counselor who tells them what to do. But relying on counseling is a way of avoiding problems and losing one's sense of responsibility. Without responsibility, a happy life is impossible. So the pronouns are changed, words are added, words are taken out, the sentences are restructured, and these are just all part of the revision process. So as you write and as you revise, you'll come across better ways to bring across your point. And your reader will have a clear understanding of what you're trying to say. So now we move to number 4. Using similar grammatical structures to achieve balance. So using similar grammatical structures to achieve balance in a sentence is called parallelism. Lack of parallelism results in a disruptive break in the rhythm of writing. Parallel constructions enhance clarity by presenting equally important ideas in the same grammatical form. So let's look at the example sentence. Walking a beat, riding patrol cars, and the work of an undercover agent are all dangerous aspects of police work. In this sentence, walking and riding, they are parallel, but the work of an undercover agent breaks the pattern in the sentence. So we can rewrite it to say, walking a beat, riding patrol cars, and working as an undercover agent or doing the work of an undercover agent are all dangerous aspects of police work. So this is the trick of parallelism. All the, again, ideas in a sentence, they must be presented in the same grammatical form. So we know that this is the gerund form used in this sentence, walking, riding, working, doing, ing. So all of them are presented in the same grammatical form. So what are some tips for checking parallelism? Edit items in a series to make them parallel. So originally the sentence under A reads, my sister obviously thought that I was too young, ignorant, and a troublemaker. We rewrite it to say, my sister obviously thought that I was too young, too ignorant, and too troublesome. So the writer changes the noun, a troublemaker, to an adjective, troublesome, and repeats too to make the sentence more impactful. Next, we move on to B. Edit paired items to make them parallel. First example reads, successful teachers must inspire students, and challenging them is also important. We revise it to read, successful teachers must both inspire and challenge their students. Simple, nice, and easy. Next, we have, many people find that having meaningful work is more important than high pay. We insert earning, and it reads, many people find that having meaningful work is more important than earning high pay. So if you didn't know what paired ideas are connected by coordinating conjunctions, correlative conjunctions, or a comparative expression, like as much, more as, less than. And these paired ideas must have a parallel grammatical form, right? So inspire, challenge, having, earning, they are parallel. And last we have C, repeat function words as needed to keep parallel structures clear. So function words are articles, prepositions, and subordination conjunctions. Oh, and the word to as well. And these give information about a word or indicate the relationships among words in a sentence. You can omit function words when the parallel structure is clear without them, as we see in the first example under C. Her goals for retirement were to travel, study art history, and write a book about Michelangelo. Otherwise, you should include them to make your sentence clear, which means include the function words, as we see in the second example. So the project has 3 goals: to survey the valley for Inca period sites, to excavate a test trench at each site, and to excavate one of those sites completely. So in inserting the word to, it clearly designates the goals themselves and highlights them, designates and highlights the goals in this sentence. And so we move on to using transition words to help the reader move easily through your writing. So your examiner will be reading your work, your teacher will be reading your work, and in order for them to get a clear idea of what's going on, transition words are a must. So transition words identify the logical connection between two parts of a sentence. They help the reader move smoothly from one idea to the next. They help the readers move smoothly from one idea to the next. When choosing a transition word, be certain of the type of signal you wish to send the reader. Addition, contrast, specification, or conclusion. So let's look at the sentences. Romance may express itself in a variety of ways. A man may send a woman a dozen long-stem roses. A husband may plan and cook a gourmet meal. Improved version. Romance may express itself in a variety of ways. For example, a man may send a woman a dozen long-stem roses. Or, as a romantic gesture, a husband may plan and cook a gourmet meal. So for example, and or, they are used as the transition words in the improved version of the mini paragraph right there. And lastly, we have repeating keywords to attract and hold your reader's attention. So this can be a two-edged sword, because if you do not use repetition correctly, I advise you to not milk this rule. Because yes, repeating gives emphasis, and sometimes repetition can be too much if you don't know what you're doing. So if you're not confident in your writing skills, I advise you to first practice before you incorporate repetition in your paragraphs, right? So let's move on to completeness. And yeah, every good paragraph must be complete. A paragraph is incomplete if it fails to adequately support or document its topic sentence. There are no rules governing the length of an adequately developed paragraph. Your topic sentence must guide you. The more restricted and narrow the topic sentence, the shorter the paragraph required. Your first concern should be to support your topic sentence with an array of specific details and to understand the difference between generalization and a specific detail. A generalization is a broad statement that is relatively abstract and lacking in facts. A specific detail, on the other hand, names names, delivers definite opinions, and contains particulars. So let's consider the following paragraph. At the turn of the century, many diseases shortened human life. People did not live very long, and what life they had was miserable. If disease did not kill them, poor hygiene did. Most people died from causes that no longer kill. Many were unhappy from the premature mortality around them. Families could not rely on younger members to outlast their parents. However, through improvements in medicine and public hygiene, we now live many years later. The writer of this paragraph has simply repeated the topic sentence in a string of generalizations. And you might be saying, well, it sounds like a good paragraph. And maybe if you do show it to your teacher, they might not see an issue with it. But what is the problem? There is no real specific detail. What diseases kill people? How did medicine improve? What changes were made to public hygiene? How long did people live? There's basically no real information in this paragraph. So a writer does not have to be a genius to amass these sorts of details. Solid research is all that is needed, especially in the case of an assignment or research. You need to put in more details than generalities, right? If you're in class and you know you don't really have that much time to get information, that's fine and dandy. Your teacher will have to understand and see, especially if you don't know much on the topic that you got. But in the case of assignments and research, you can add in more specific details. So this is a revision of that paragraph, and this is from Health, Man in a Changing Environment by Benjamin A. Hogan. And it reads, at the turn of the century, infectious diseases were the primary health menace to this nation. Acute respiratory conditions such as pneumonia, influenza were major killers. Tuberculosis too drained the nation's vitality. Gastrointestinal infections decimated the child population. A great era of environmental control helped change all this. Water and milk supplies were made safe. Engineers constructed systems to handle and treat perilous human waste and to render them safe. Food sanitation and personal hygiene became a way of life. Continual labors of public health workers diminished death rates of mothers and their infants. Countless children were vaccinated. Tuberculosis was brought under control. True, new environmental hazards replaced the old, but people survived to suffer them. In 1900, the average person in the United States rarely eked out 50 years of life. Some 20 years have been added to this life expectancy. And here we have an array of specific details in the paragraph. So more details are needed to convince the reader. Exactly what kind of supporting details you should use in your paragraphs varies with your subject. But as a general rule, as I said before, it is always better to write in specifics than generalities. This means that if you are writing an essay on the harmful effects of smoking, you should learn enough about your topic to be able to name not only the harmful gases given off by cigarettes, but also the specific diseases that they cause. A writer who pens a sentence like, cigarette smoke contains a variety of dangerous gases, including carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, and hydrogen cyanide, will sound more competent than one who merely writes, cigarette smoke contains a variety of gases. So at the end of the day, please add in more specifics than generalities. And in learning how to write in such a way that specific details back up your main point, you will have no problem writing summaries. So in developing one skill, you develop another. So after all this talking, we're at the end of the presentation, and hopefully next week we will continue on paragraphs. Yeah, we'll still be on paragraphs on on Thursday, and on Tuesday we will start verbs, right? Because this Tuesday I was not able to have class. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you will be able to meet here on Tuesday again. Have a good weekend and have a good rest of the day.